Welcome to day 2 of my Holy Week reflections. Yesterday it was prayer. Today it's another P, patience. You'll be glad to know there isn't a third one coming later in the week. Patience is something that is a challenge for all of us in a fast-moving world. And it was no different for the first disciples. I'm thinking particularly about Judas here, who has a bad press because he turned out to be, well, the bad guy. But actually, he was trying to force God's hand. He was trying to force Jesus' hand by betraying him, by taking the money. He had a plan, did Judas. It was a common plan, even. He knew how to make things work, or so he thought. Every now and again, he pops up through the gospel stories, offering wisdom, advice. But the subtext always seems to be that it was more than that. He was always operating behind the scenes. He was kind of trying to manipulate the others, but without being very obvious about it. Except I suspect he was very obvious about it to those who thought for a moment. I'm sure Judas was well-intentioned. He probably thought he had a strategy that would force Jesus' hand, force God's hand even, and somehow the kingdom that he and others longed for would miraculously appear rather than the outcome that we see and know at the end of Holy Week. But when you think about it, he really had no strategy at all. He thought he was a great strategist, but actually he didn't know what he was doing, and he certainly hadn't paid attention to the divine strategy. You might say he spent too much time listening to himself and not enough time paying attention either to the other disciples or indeed to Jesus or in fact to God. As I was thinking about that in relation to where church more broadly and generally finds itself in our situation today, in our wider culture I'm thinking of, I don't suppose many of us intentionally identify with Judas. In fact, of all the disciples, he's probably the one we would avoid. But I wonder if there's something in there that we should be thinking about. The man with a great grandiose strategy, who actually ended up doing the exact opposite of what he thought he was wanting to do. Indeed, I suspect what in his heart of hearts he most desired. There's lots to think about in these snippets of stories as we journey with Jesus towards the cross.